Welcome to Freedom Ring. Before we do anything, I want to congratulate the New England Free Jacks on winning the Major League Rugby Eastern Conference last Saturday, beating Old Glory DC. That was huge win. And now going to Chicago to play the San Diego Legion for the MLR Championship. We're wishing the Free Jacks good luck and get this done. Finish the story, make history. But my guest this week, Dave Fournier, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, Dave, welcome back. It's been a little while since you've been on.
Yeah, about 3 years since I've been in studio, I guess. We've done a couple of at-home ones over the last couple of years.
Oh, it has been 3. Yeah, time.
Yeah.
The 20s are moving.
It's crazy. It's
you
crazy.
Know? We started interesting, and now it's like 3 years in the pandemic.
Yeah, it's like to think where we were when I was here last time compared to where we're now. It's just kind of amazing because I never thought we'd be back to this point.
Yeah, there were times where it was just so miserable not leaving, and like you said, we did a bunch of stuff on. I learned how to do online episodes because of the pandemic. But how you been since your last appearance?
I've been doing okay. Been busy with work and kind of doing DoorDash on the side and just kind of keeping myself busy, going to a lot of wrestling shows lately, and yeah, I mean. Been crazy, couple of years, I guess.
It really has. Yeah. And you were saying DoorDash, because I was telling you I saw someone doing like 7-Eleven the other day.
Yeah, I mean DoorDash, that was kind of a pandemic thing for me when I started it, and obviously not as good money now as it was then. Still okay, but since I was coming up here today, I had the day off. I said, let me try it up here in New Hampshire, and amazing at how much, but. DoorDash has got their, I don't want to cross that line. Advertising for anybody, but they got their hands in everything.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. Do you ever get any orders that you're like, seriously, like, what,
Well, it's funny because a lot of people I don't think realize, like, the fees and stuff that they charge the customer, those don't go to the drivers, obviously.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't realize that. It's really based on, somebody tipping, and you get those people that just don't tip and like.
Really?
Oh, during the pandemic, never happened, but once we got out of that pandemic, people just went back to old habits. And
I never understood that. Like, maybe it's because I know that most service workers they work off tips, but like I couldn't imagine. Maybe it's the way I was brought up. Maybe it's just always been the way I've looked at society. Like I can't imagine not doing that.
Yeah, like. Even if it's $1, $2, like I'm happy if somebody gave something, but when they give absolutely nothing, it just feels like there's no, like in my opinion, no appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, I even like to tip when I go to Dunkin' Donuts, but I have to have cash.
Yeah.
So sometimes if there's cash in the car, I usually put that in the tip because I'm like, I don't know, there's one that want to put something in it.
And it's funny when you mention like Dunkin' Donuts, that counter service. I feel like that also became more of like a thing during the pandemic. I mean, it was there before that. But I feel like, I'd throw $1 in here and there, and now I feel almost like bad if I don't have like cash to give them now. Like,
yeah.
What gets me nowadays is the stores that have those things. They turn the tablet around. You have to choose.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like, and it gives you the options of how much.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of servers like say that makes it awkward for them because it's almost like they're begging you for like a tip. Like,
yeah, that's really awkward. I do remember during the pandemic, I gave. I don't know, some high school kid that was working at Dunkin' Donuts, gave him like a $20 tip. And it was partly I wanted to leave a tip, but also like I was so paranoid by COVID, and I was just like, yeah, just take it. you got it.
Yeah, you don't want any change back then.
Like, wow, really? We're good, But no, awesome. Like you were saying, wrestling shows are back. Do you feel like independent wrestling in the area is back full force?
Oh, definitely. I think it's probably been a year and a half now that it's really kind of gone back, And, crowds definitely have picked back up. I wasn't sure that it would come back to that, and it seems like everybody just kind of forgot about the pandemic. If you want to be honest, myself included.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I was starting to forget it a little bit. Well, I guess even last year, I got COVID for the first time in 2022, and AEW was running a show at Aganis, and they're like, you don't have to wear a mask. I said, all right, whatever, because you stop caring after a while, and I got COVID, and it had to have been there.
Most likely, yeah.
I've
been lucky, knock on wood. I have still
never
had it, that I know of anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it put me up. I was, I definitely, I mean, it wasn't, it definitely was something different. I mean, I felt really weak, and yeah, I didn't like COVID.
All my family had, I was living with my sister and brother, and they got it. My mom got it. Like, I was around my mom when just before, a couple days before she tested positive. So I'm just shocked that I never got it. Like,
yeah, I mean, it does hit everybody a little bit different. You may have and just never knew, but it's a pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's now I feel like it's just something we know is there, and if it happens, it happens. It happens, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean that's all we can really. I wouldn't worry at this point.
No,
we got a good grip on it. I feel like as a society we've built communities and.
Yeah, I mean I've been to concerts at Fenway Park last year. Places with 20,000 people, and I feel like obviously it can still get it, but if I didn't get it there, I think I have a pretty good immune system. But if I get it, I feel like. By protecting myself as I have, I feel like that will keep it from being, totally serious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, we were talking about the softball field. There was no real way to avoid what happened. I mean, we tried to curve it as much as possible, but there was going to be casualties. Like there's just a new virus.
There was just so much misinformation at the time. I feel like that caused people to just kind of not trust it because they kept changing it.
Yeah, we definitely were in a weird.
I mean, in the beginning, it was like. Everything had to be wiped down. Like you bring somebody bags of their food and they'd wipe the bags down before they touch them. Then all of a sudden, like a month later, oh no, it's not based on surfaces, it's airborne. Like, so, kind of people all of a sudden were like, well, they said it was this,
It's like telephone, right? The message kept changing.
Yeah.
And you didn't know where to get the message from. And, you might hear from Johnny on the street, then you hear something crazy on TV, and you just don't know.
And then they didn't make it any better by like, okay, well, you can come into a restaurant, and once you sit down at the table, now they're saying it's an airborne thing, right? But once you sit down at the table, you can take your mask off, right? But if you get up and go to the bathroom, you got to put your mask back on. And it's like, well, if you're already all in that building and it's airborne, like, why do you need to put the mask back on at that point?
Yeah, that was a tough thing. It was like one of those things where we're taking any precautions, but we were not built to be stuck in our houses.
No. And in some, I mean, I'm from Massachusetts, so it was kind of, they were a little bit more strict, I feel like, than New Hampshire was or even some other states. Our governor was kind of a little ridiculous, like, oh, you can sit at a table, but you can't sit at a bar stool. Like, it was just like, some of the stuff just didn't make sense. Like,
oh, yeah, I got in trouble in Massachusetts at one point. I was at a bar, and I, had a few, and I was making friends. That's what I do, and, when you go out, I'm just talking to people in line for the bathroom, because the bathroom lines are still really long. Or maybe there was only one bathroom at this point. So we're talking, and, like, one of the, I don't know, it was a bartender or waitress, they're like, hey, get away from each other. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what are you going to tell the governor on me? And it was just one of those times,
Absolutely. But it's good to see things back to, as normal as can be. I still think we have to be vigilant at times, but,
Yeah, no, I'm liking where we're at now. Have you noticed, being a big independent wrestling fan, are you noticing growth in the independents right now?
I'm noticing like a lot of different promotions running even on the same night as each other, and all of them are managing to draw decent crowds. Even just in the state of New Hampshire, you have Atlantic Pro Wrestling running, Wrestling Federation of America. It's like they'll all be running. Chaotic Wrestling will be running. They'll all be running the same night, and they all manage to get decent crowds.
Yeah, because I mean, I felt like we saw a big surge. And again, you followed independent longer than me. I got about 10 years in the New England, following it. I felt like between 2017 and 2019, there was a surge of wrestling shows that I thought was even more than when I first started watching. Does it feel like, because then it's because I felt like 2019 was a really big year, and then the pandemic hit.
I think it was definitely going that way. Like some of these promotions were kind of coming around, and then the pandemic hit and kind of killed any momentum that they had. I know I'm going back, way back in the early 2000s, there were a lot more shows running, but they would just, nobody would be, it would be one would maybe draw and the other two would get nobody. So now seeing, all these places running maybe 30 minutes away from each other, still drawing, really good crowds, it's encouraging that people are going out and supporting the local independent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely, because there was a time there where it seemed, that had to be tough if, I know not all of them make their living that way, but some of them do.
Yep.
And, it was a tough time.
Yeah, I mean, the only ones that dislike them running on the same nights are the ones like, Jerry Lane, people like that will go to every show. So they don't like when, they all run the same night because it's like they have to choose.
Yep.
For them it's tough, but for everyone else it's good, to see.
Absolutely. I got to ask this real quick. Have you been watching? And I know Leo just had him on the show, on his show. Mike Crockett, are you watching the Today in New England Independent Pro Wrestling History?
I have been.
Yeah.
Mike Crockett's somebody I know back from his refereeing days. Chaotic even before that, when he trained with Killer Kowalski, and I really enjoy those. I think he does a great job with them. Makes them entertaining. Throws in some comedy bits with them. Definitely kudos. For people to definitely check them out.
Yeah, I wake up every morning. I'm like interested to be what's going to be, because some of them I have no idea what that's even referring to, and I think that's part of the attraction of that is wait, what, who? Have you seen any of those that you were like, oh, I remember that?
Oh yeah, there's definitely been some. The way he'll talk about different shows. He actually just had one the other day talking about this promotion that ran one show. They crowned all these champions and then never ran a show again after that. So kind of funny, because it's like, wow, I forgot all about that promotion until he brought that it happened 20 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've learned more about. I've always known about Lobster Man, but learned more about Jeff Costa.
Jeff, that's yes.
And I must have missed. I may have known about, but he brought up how he was on the Daily Show that time when he was running for president.
Yes.
That was pretty cool. There's been a lot of.
You were probably young when that was going on too.
Yeah, it must have been.
It was 1999, 2000.
Okay, so middle school. Time, but
so you probably could have cared less about politics at that point.
Yeah, I don't think I never watched the Daily Show until I was older. I knew Jon Stewart from being in Big Daddy.
Oh wow, okay.
That's what I recognized him from. That was about it. Now I want to get into this. You've been doing a lot of ring announcing lately. How did you end up getting into wrestling ring announcing?
So it's kind of a twofold thing. Recently kind of fell in my lap, kind of like it did in the beginning. Recently I was at a show in Everett, and they didn't have a ring announcer. Their regular guy, was unable to make it, and they didn't have anyone, and they're kind of scrambling. And I finally said, if you really need me to do it, I don't have, because I always feel parents are still important, for a ring announcer, at least, dress shirt and tie, in my opinion. All I had was, t-shirt and jeans, and they were like, yeah, just do it, because they didn't have anyone else. And then that kind of kicked off, this was for UFO wrestling, so thanks to Pat Dillon for giving me the chance. And then kind of, his ring announcer had a couple other shows he couldn't make, so it kind of fell into doing, some additional shows for him.
Awesome. Is there anybody is there anything that goes into it? Because you did it before that, right?
Back in the early 2000s, I used to travel with a group of wrestlers and go up to Maine, and used to just, whatever they need to do, set up the ring, do the camera, take the, stuff back to the dressing room, the ring jackets, whatever, was always filling in for whatever. And then I started going up there, and one night I actually got up there, and the promoter was like, throw me a ref shirt, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, you're a referee tonight. I'm like, I've never refereed before. He goes, well, you are now. And that turned in, we were up there for 4 days straight with no other referee. So I ref, 6 to 8 matches every night for a whole weekend. And then it kind of turned into, he started calling me utility Dave. So I'd ref sometimes, I'd ring announce sometimes, whatever they kind of needed. That was for Sonny Roselli and Larry Huntley up in Maine. So
now with the reffing, okay, if you're not a trained referee, they throw you in. Are you going to the wrestlers let me know how this is going to finish? Or are you just counting and they're going to kick out if they're going to kick out?
So, what they would tell me is what the finish is, so I would know, that's the finish of the match. But the rest of it was just, and the rule always was, it's up to them to get that shoulder up. If they don't get that shoulder up, then I'm counting that free. And, I always felt uncomfortable, but nobody really looked down, I think, because I knew so many people that they were confident enough, even though I hadn't been trained. Because I always felt like, geez, I'm not trained. I shouldn't be here doing this. I think the only complaint was that I was bigger than most of the wrestlers, especially on the local scene. So a lot of them didn't like it, because it's here's this big, 250-pound guy refereeing a match, and we're, 180 pounds.
Yeah, it's like that jacked UFC referee.
Yeah.
That's always bigger than the smaller guys, and you're like, yeah, they ain't messing with that ref.
Yeah, it was always great, when they'd have, the 400-pound hillbilly match or something like that, because then it wouldn't look so bad. But when you have, at the time, there was, this kid, Mighty Minnie, that was, cruiserweight style, 160 pounds, whatever. And, here I go in, towering over him height-wise, weight-wise, just makes him, and I was worried about keeping up with them, and I managed,
Yeah.
I don't think my knees could do refereeing today, which is why I, would stick to the ring announcing.
Yeah, is there any like style that you go like when you're asked to ring announce like the first time you got to be like, because you know Howard Finkel, you know his style, Rich Palladino in the local area, all the other ones that I'm blanking on, they all have a certain style. Like, how did you?
I just kind of, to me, I mean, I'd probably take a mixture of all of those people. I don't want to come off as an imitation of anyone. I probably most, in my opinion, I think I probably most closely follow kind of Rich Palladino's style, just because he's the known guy on the independents. I'll never be as good as him, but good enough to get out there and do it. It's just try to make it my own thing without being a total copycat.
Yeah, yeah, and Rich has like a radio voice.
Rich does, he does
in a way, Now, what's your favorite part of ring announcing?
For me, it's just kind of being out there, getting the crowd going, kind of keeping the crowd, without and the thing is, like, you get some ring announcers that go out there and they make the show about them, and like that's not what the ring announcer should be about. Like, yeah, he's the guy that's kind of got to keep everything together for the crowd, but you also don't want to be that guy that's like taken away from the rest of the show, spending time in between, I'll do stuff in between matches, but you don't want to be that guy like, trying to get yourself over. You're there to, much like referee, to get that talent over in the ring. But I just enjoyed the interaction with the crowd and, kind of just being out there.
Have you had any skits, like, not skits, but moments with wrestlers where you ever seen the wrestler, it's like, no, you're going to announce it like this. They stop everything. Like, has there been any interaction like that?
So there definitely is a couple that, will do that. There's one guy that calls himself the GOAT, and he has this big, like, 6-paragraph, like, introduction that, that he, like, every time I always joke, like, because I'll have a notepad to write it down, and I'm like, yeah, you're going to take all my, my whole notepad just to write your introduction, like, because it's such a long introduction,
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Aaron, like, do you ever run into times where there's just a name that, I know wrestling, they try to make the names simple, because the more difficult your name is, chances are they're going to forget it. Any difficult names that you've run into to announce?
The only one I can really remember, and it wasn't really that much of a struggle, but there's a gentleman by the name, he goes by El Guapo, and it was just kind of like the first couple times just trying to get used to saying that right. I think for me, it's just kind of remembering, to introduce, the right information for the guy. But for the most part, I don't think, only because I know so much of the, wrestlers, that I don't feel like I struggle as much with the names.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've always, because that's the thing about like pro wrestling, like you don't want to have a difficult name.
No, and if you do, you want to make sure you can teach somebody how to say, to say the name.
Yeah, because I mean, what I remember it now. I know we don't talk about him much, or wrestling fans don't, but the way that Howard Finkel would say Chris Benoit, like that was the best.
Yeah, I mean, Howard Finkel was unique. He's probably the best. There was also a guy back in the early '80s that I actually love hearing his voice. I'll watch tapes of YouTube or on different streaming outlets where they stream the old shows from the '80s. His name was Joe McHugh, and he just has a very distinct voice, and just the way you hear him, it's like you'd love to do it, but it's like I don't want to come across as that imitation either. But he was kind of the predecessor for he was on all the WWF TV shows before Howard Finkel.
Yeah, well, speaking of just because you said copycat, because it's someone further back, a lot of people have been all over LA Knight. Have you been seeing this online?
I have, yes.
Saying that he's a Rock ripoff, which I don't see it. I see similarities. Do you feel like LA Knight? I mean, obviously, he's like 39, 40 years old. He's probably got some influence from The Rock. You grew up watching him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fairness, I haven't seen a lot of it to 100% form a whole opinion. I do think there's probably some imitation there, but I feel like everything in wrestling at some point has some imitation that's carried on from someone else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's hard. It's like, when you look at like even music, like samples and stuff, there's only so many ideas out there,
I think today's fans sometimes are just overly critical. Like they just look for something to pick apart. Like could be the greatest match ever, and they're just going to find that one thing. Like, oh well, he stood in the wrong place. Just as a stupid example, but it's like, oh, he stood in the wrong place, so they're going to say, oh, the match wasn't good because of that. Like,
yeah, there's all types of things to find. But I mean, I find out. I've always felt Eli Drake or LA Knight. I've always found him entertaining. Now, recently you got to ring announce at Fenway Park. Tell us about that experience.
So that actually fell in, as I said, I was doing the UFO wrestling shows, and Bo Douglas, who's been a longtime friend of mine back to when he started, in the wrestling business back 20 years ago. Him and this gentleman, Dante Luna, they did these shows back in 2018, 2019 at Fenway Park, part of a Latin festival they have there every year. And he was talking about, and I had just said, I'll be around, if you can find something, for me to do. And he actually said, I'll let you ring announce, a few of the matches. There's 25. Well, they wound up getting cut. That's a whole long story there, that things went way over time and some matches got cut. But there were 25 matches, so they wound up having 4 ring announcers, which was good. It gave everybody a chance, and I was honored that Bo thought enough of me to give me that, opportunity. It was inside kind of where the concessions are. That's where they held it, not on the field. But still, to do something at Fenway Park like that, I as a kid, I could have never dreamed that I'd have that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, was there anything going on the field after, or was it all just in there?
It was all in there. It was like part of a big Latin and health festival.
Okay.
But a lot of people. Probably the biggest crowd I've ever rang announce in front of was
Really?
at that event. We all kind of split the matches, and the kid that had the first match. Very nice kid, Ethan from up in Maine. He kind of works with Limitless, and he's kind of been learning from Rich Palladino. He was just like, kind of like he didn't want to do the whole, welcome in the crowd and stuff. So I actually got the opportunity to start
really?
out the show, which that's one of my favorite things, kind of just getting the crowd kind of amped up and ready to go.
What do you usually say to the crowd?
Usually I just, welcome to, Boston, Fenway Park, or, welcome to, when we're in Amesbury, and, the name of the building and, whatever the name of the event is, and then, kind of, get the crowd, are you ready for, wrestling, and then it's like, you do that, come on, you guys can do better than that type of thing, just to get it,
That's pretty cool. That's going to be fun to say, like, welcome to Fenway Park.
Yeah, like that was, like I said, as if you had told me as a kid that I would have gotten to ring announce, period, like I would have said, yeah, that's never going to happen, Yeah. I was never the most outgoing person, so I think, even to this day, I'm still tend to be quieter unless I really know you, so I think a lot of people get surprised when I'm able to go out there and do the ring announcing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I did notice a lot of people had pictures like in other parts of the stadium. Like, were you allowed to walk around? Like,
so they did have all kinds of events going on throughout the stadium.
Okay.
Besides the wrestling. So yeah, there was a lot going on.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they had the World Series trophy for people to take pictures with, and which I never got over there myself.
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry, Justin Del Rio, I don't think he'd ever been to Fenway Park, and he was there.
Yeah, I was disappointed I didn't get to see him. You had told me he was there, and I kind of, by the time I tried to look, he must have either left or was just kind of caught in the crowd.
It's hard to find people at like events like
Yeah.
that. I know we kind of talked about it, but who have been some of your favorite like announcers? Anybody that we wouldn't really think about?
So as far as like ring announcers, besides the ones we mentioned, like Rich Palladino, Howard Finkel, Joe McHugh, I think you might be familiar with Gary Michael Capetta. He was a WCW ring announcer kind of before, Dave Penza came along.
So like 90s?
Oh yeah, throughout the 90s. Like he started started with Vince's father in the 70s, and he was one of their ring announcers, on TV, on one of the TV shows. And then when Vince, Jr. took over, he kind of didn't like the guy, and he kind of moved over to AWA and then WCW, and he was with them for a long time. I think if you heard him or saw him,
you would know.
You would know. He's got a very distinct, voice. He was always one of my favorites because he would just do that, wrestling fans, hello and welcome. Like he just had that voice, So it was, he was always one of those ones that a lot of people, I felt like he didn't get enough credit because he was such good. And he's such a nice guy. Leo and I and Jerry Lane ran into him. We went down to the Super 8 back in 2020. And as we were going to leave the building, there he was, and he actually sat there and talked to us for quite a little bit of time.
Awesome.
So it was kind of cool to kind of, get to talk to him. I had met him a couple times before, but, this is kind of more on a nice personal level.
Nice. Did you like the ECW ring announcer who'd be like, almost like yelling into the mic when he would do it? I don't recall his name.
I can't think of his name now, and I know who you mean. I didn't mind him because it gave that kind of a distinct announcing style to that particular promotion. I think you and I had talked about this, a few days ago about how it's good to have different ring announcers. It kind of helps identify a promotion, but you still want to have the guy that can do a good job, which I think that's why so many people use, like Rich Palladino, because he is, I'm probably biased because he's been a friend of mine for a long time, but I think he's the best around. Like if anyone's going to book anybody, I'd say book Rich.
Yeah, Rich is definitely like the workhorse of ring announcing in New England. Yeah, I think it's tough with that because you probably want him because he's the best, but then it makes you like it doesn't separate your promotion. But like if he like when he does it in Chaotic, like I look at him as the voice of Chaotic, like. But he can also go do Limitless because they're not really in the same area. You know what I mean? So
and it's funny because when Chaotic first started back in 2000, like they actually did contracts, and Rich was actually under contract.
Really?
So he had been kind of working different places, and then when he went to work for them, he was, in that contract, and he could only work for them for, quite a few years. And then when that kind of whole contract thing ended, then people started, using him everywhere again.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably a guy that could have definitely been used on television.
We always say like he's had tryouts, and myself, Maverick Wild has said it. We can't understand why that he never got hired, but I think now it's just not what they're looking for. They're looking for like younger.
Yeah, what's his name? That's with AEW now. It's like he aged out for WWE. He wasn't even that old. What's his
Justin
name?
Roberts.
Justin Roberts. Like one day there's like, yeah, you're out of here. And I was like, I thought he still did a good job.
I feel like he never really got a fair chance because it was kind of like he kind of came in behind like, well, there was Howard Finkel and then Lillian Garcia and then there was Justin Roberts, and I felt like people really didn't. And I feel like when he became the announcer, like on Raw, like it's kind of like they were talking over his intros a lot, so you didn't really get to know him as much as you'd get to know some of the other ring announcers back in the past.
Well, I thought what also went against him was the reboot of ECW, and they like the announcer I was talking about. If anybody knows his name, please comment on this because I can't think of it. But you had that very distinct ECW announcer, and they used him for the One Night Stand pay-per-view. And then when they went to tell, we know like we can talk about all the mistakes that were made in the relaunch, but I remember being like, nothing against Justin Roberts, but if you're going to do ECW, like if you're going to have that television show, at least use the original ring announcer. You already had him on, and I thought that went against him too.
Yeah, they just didn't do anything original though with that. Like, I mean, that whole relaunch was just,
It was bad, and I would have. It never had the ECW vibe. And,
no,
I guess that's what they wanted.
It was a good try, but they were trying to make it their own. Which is why it didn't last.
Yeah, that was one of those Vince McMahon, because a lot of people, for every great Vince McMahon idea, there's a bunch of really bad ones.
Absolutely.
Now I want to ask this. Recently on Facebook, there's an old promoter who's kind of like doing like, I think it's more like kind of advice for wrestling people like in the business right now. I think it's just something that he likes to do and get that out there. And but he was saying, your company name has to be marketable. And he said he didn't feel that the name Chaotic Wrestling was good marketing. And I read that, and I kind of disagreed because I always loved that name. What do you think of the name Chaotic Wrestling?
So I have a lot to say on this subject, but I'm going to keep it as short as I can. I'm going to look at the camera to say this part of it, though. I hope this person that's writing this doesn't get upset. It's not a personal attack. It's just my own feeling, and I think that if someone else was doing it, he'd have the same feeling. Before I get to the whole subject of the Chaotic thing, him just doing this, like, one thing to give the advice, I think that's fine. Like, if you want to post stuff on Facebook, give advice, whatever. Like, but now he started asking people to send him like tips or donations for doing them, and I just feel like that makes it kind of tacky. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And again, not my place to say it. That's what he wants to do, and people want to send it to him. That's fine. But I just think it makes it kind of tacky because you're really giving, unsolicited advice because the people he's giving it to, they didn't ask for it. Like anyone that's listening to it, it's not who he's giving it to. So I don't. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean anybody can ask for whatever, but I would say with just the tip thing is that I understand why Mike Crockett does that because he has to put a lot of time into making those videos. So that I do understand.
I feel like it's different. I don't know. I didn't feel like Crockett was. I don't know. It just came across differently to me. Like Crockett's doing entertaining, podcasts. He's doing kind of what a lot of social media influencers do and ask for, people to tip him, which myself, I actually sent him a tip, just, because I enjoy the segments, just to help with his equipment and whatever. Whereas I feel like this is more like, okay, I'm going to give advice, but, oh, I've had a rough year, so send me some money for doing it. Like, I don't know. That's how, maybe I'm taking it the wrong way, and I don't want, again, if this person sees it, I don't want him to think like, him and I have had a history past where we've gotten along, we haven't gotten along, and I don't want any issues with him.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, as far as the chaotic name, I mean, when they began, that's what they were. They were chaotic wrestling. There was a lot of chaos. They had like guys like Gino Martino, Ali Muhammad. They did a King of Chaos tournament. A lot of hardcore stuff with John Kronos even in the beginning. So I think that's where the name kind of came from, and their slogan was "Let the to this day I feel like it's still "Let the Chaos Begin." So I don't think it's unmarketable. I think in my opinion, it made sense. I'm not sure that was the best example to use.
That's how I kind of read it, because people were saying in the comments, like, they have chaotic wrestling and then Let the Chaos Begin. Like, I feel like I didn't know much about chaotic when I first went going, but I was like, chaotic wrestling. I don't know. That name, I liked the name.
Yeah.
I did like the name. And then when I saw there was a slogan on top of it, because that's how Rich would open all the shows. Now, I honestly, in my opinion, thought that was a great marketing. I think I definitely bought one of those T-shirts that "Let the Chaos Begin." So I definitely didn't think that was a great example either.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I used to, when they first started, I used to go and do a ring crew, and I had my own cable access show at the time, so I had about 8 of those "Let the Chaos Begin" T-shirts, white, black. But yeah, I always thought it was a good name. I honestly don't think, and again, this is not meant as a slight on anybody, but I don't think, as a fan perspective, that fans are really thinking that hard into the name of the promotion. They're there to see the wrestling, who's on the show, are they entertained? At the end of the day, and they have the slogan that goes with it, they're going to remember that.
No, I totally agree. That was just one. I think the other example was another one that was, the name wasn't, you probably don't want to, it says some World War II stuff tied to it. So I sort of was like, all right, I get that, but anyways, I do like the name Chaotic Wrestling. I always like it.
I like it. I mean, you could always find something wrong with every name, you could take a look and say, oh, well, Wrestling Federation of America, they're kind of more, New England based. How is it Wrestling Federation of America? If you really want to be that picky, but I don't think anybody is thinking that far into it,
I don't either, I don't either. I thought that was, I don't know. I definitely saw that and was like, I don't know if that fits.
mean, in fairness, and again, this is, I think the gentleman that's making these posts, he does have a passion for independent wrestling, and I think he's trying to help in his own way, but I just think I think some people may be liking it, but I feel like some people are probably getting insulted by it as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. I mean, even if you are, you just gotta let it roll off,
Yeah, and I think most people are doing that.
The
ones that he's pointing his advice at probably aren't even reading his posts, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that could be true too. I gotta ask this: what do you think of the state of AEW right now?
I mean, I'm glad to see they're still around. I really didn't know if they would last. I don't watch a lot of it just because it's tough for me, because Wednesday nights is just not I already have wrestling that I'm watching on Monday night and Tuesday night. So Wednesday nights I don't always, tune in. Friday nights I'm usually sometimes at an independent show, whatever. And then now I guess they have a Saturday show too. But I'm glad to see they're still, successful like they have been. They kind of seem to be, branching out. They have the big show coming up in England, United Kingdom. I think, they're here to stay. I think they've made a lot of mistakes along the way that haven't helped them. I think they could have maybe been a little more successful than they could have been. I think Tony Khan sometimes talks and throws insults out like he shouldn't, and when he should just do his own thing. And I think that fan base that was so loyal in the beginning has kind of swayed a little bit, where they still like it, but they are also liking the competition now.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of different opinions on this when I've had wrestling people on the show. And someone was on here saying, they were diehard AEW, and then they said they started going with a lot of the nostalgia. And he, bringing in, let's say Matt Hardy, Jeff Jarrett. These are guys I do want to see. Because I was never on AEW. I just want another company.
Yeah.
I didn't care what it was. But he was one of those guys that I want the 5-star classics. I want this to be the wrestling company where it's the main focus is the wrestling. And now you brought in all this other stuff where he's like, now I feel alienated because this is not what I originally wanted.
Yeah, he didn't make it an alternative. He kind of made it more of the same thing. If that's like I said, I don't watch it enough to say 100%, but from what I'm reading and hearing, that seems to be the direction it's kind of gone in.
I'm not gonna lie, like I have no problem with them being very similar to WWE. I like to see familiar faces until you've established, I knew who MJF was going in because of independent wrestling. I knew that guy was cut out for this. But a lot of people that they introduced to you, they still haven't given me a reason to care. And then they're gone. Or they're like, Wardlow had a lot of momentum in that TNT title. Then they took it right off him. And I was like, well, now I don't care about Wardlow anymore. And that's like, we'll put it back on him. Well, I don't care now. Oh, we're going to take it back off him. Like, it's
one
tough.
thing for me, like, I'm probably have everybody else will disagree with, maybe yourself included, but I'm not a big CM Punk fan, so I think they're putting too much on him as the guy that's gonna, like now I guess did he already come back or is he?
He did come back, but the main focus is for him to be, on the Saturday show.
Okay.
And Saturday wrestling isn't really. I don't know if there's a need for that.
It's kind of interesting because everybody kind of got away from that, like. Even WWE now, like all their like big events are on Saturdays, and for the longest time, nobody did Saturdays because they were like everybody's out on that night, nobody's home, nobody's watching, so everything was Sunday. And now everybody kind of has moved everything to Saturday, so I do kind of find that interesting. I don't know. I mean, maybe if he's that focus of that one show, maybe that will work.
Yeah, I just feel though on Saturdays, like it's very different to watch a weekly show on Saturday night than a premium live event or pay-per-view. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because premium live event or pay-per-view is, hey, come on over. Let's have our Saturday night watching this. Are you going to call your buddies it's not an event every Saturday,
Yeah, I think they're trying to go into that, like, back in the, like, 80s when Saturday night at 6:05 was, like, the time to watch, wrestling, like, on the same channel that the new show's on, the AEW show's on now. So I feel like maybe if they moved it into that time slot instead of doing it later, like
I don't even know what time it's on.
I don't either. But I'm
7 maybe?
I think
6
it might be.
now.
I mean, if it's 6, that's kind of because the old time slot was 6:05. So I'm like, if they're doing it then, that might be good for that nostalgia thing. Kind of people watch it before they go out for the night or whatever. But if you're doing it at 8, 9 o'clock, like you said, like people aren't. If they're home, they're going to watch it. But if they're out, they're not going to. I don't even know, like, I haven't seen anything on ratings for it or anything like that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm happy to have CM Punk back, but the time away, I'm on team CM Punk when it comes to everything that happened because I look at the Young Bucks as they are in a position of power, and I don't think they should be if they're going to engage with employees of the company like that. I don't know. We're not there. But someone's upset, and you're an EVP, and you race to their locker room. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, I mean, in that side, yeah, I definitely am on CM Punk's side in that situation. Never been a Young Bucks fan for numerous reasons. When they, put over 13-year-old kids at the birthday party, like that just kind of ruined them for me. But
at the end of the day, this is what irks me about the company is attitude reflects leadership. What is that from? Remember the Titans? But it's true. And they have a leader that's not really a leader. No. He wants to be their buddy. And at the end of the day, like these guys are getting paid good money to be television stars, and they're acting like, I'm not going to work with that guy. I'm not going to work with that guy. And it all leaks to the internet. And it just takes away from the product. I like the days where like I didn't need to know it when it was a big deal when you found out people were feuding backstage. With AEW, it's every other week. Oh, yeah. So you're like you don't even feel like you have the inside track because you're just waiting for the next story to break.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's silly. What do you think of it going to the Garden?
So I think that's kind of a big move. I was kind of surprised when I heard it because they've gone to different arenas in the past, smaller buildings. So to get into the Garden at this point, I think is smart. From my understanding, it's not selling as many tickets as I think they would have expected, but it's also summertime, so I think that might be playing a part into it.
Well, I will say this. Did you go to any of the Aganis arena
I have
shows?
never been to one of their shows. I'm hopeful I'm going to get to this one. Again, Wednesdays are hard with work and everything, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I have not been. I don't. I've heard they did well.
Aganis is a pain to get to.
It's a very difficult building.
If
yeah.
you make one wrong turn, you've just
Oh,
set
if you're coming
yourself
by
back.
car, especially.
Yeah.
Like
So I was happy about it to go to the Garden, but I just haven't been jumping to I haven't been watching, so I'm not really like invested in going. But I think if you're gonna run in Boston, the Garden is, even if they don't sell it out, I think you'll see more people go to the next one. It's just a much easier place to get to.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely if you're in Boston, that's definitely the place to go. I just don't know how often, because I understand since they started booking these bigger buildings that now WWE has gone to these buildings and said, well, we're going to book a show here. You can't let anybody else book a show so many weeks after us and so many weeks before us, which is what they did back in the 80s, which makes it hard. I mean, not as hard, I think, now because they don't go. They only go to buildings 3-4 times a year, whereas in the 80s they went pretty much every month, so basically locked people out. But I think it's going to make it harder because they'll try to find their ways to
Stop them.
stop, which I hope they don't. Like, I think it's great to have choices.
I say go. I would love AEW went to Lowell. Saugus is just so easy to get in and get out.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
I wish they picked that out. It's like, I felt like AEW was like, no, we got to do Boston, even though Aganis again is a pain. It is a pain to get into. I want to do some top fives here. With you going to a lot of independent shows, who are the top 5 in the independents in our area right now?
All right, and I'm not going to do them in any order just because I don't want anybody to think I'm choosing one over the other, because
Sure.
I think they all have something to give. I would definitely say, Chaotic, just on their success alone, they still continue to this day. There's been some kind of changes there, different talent. Hasn't always been for me. I have gone to a couple of shows recently that I've kind of enjoyed a little more. It seems to, have switched some of the focus back to how it used to be, I feel like. I think they've had so much success. They run, regular buildings, same buildings, pretty much, numerous, 2-3 shows a month. So I definitely think you have to put them at the top. I think WFA is another one. I think they've struggled a little bit. I don't know if it's just because they're in areas that just harder to get people to go. I don't know what it is. I think they have great shows. They have great production. Probably the top, probably top production out of anybody, to be honest. So I think they continue.
It takes time.
Yeah, I mean I think there's things that they could do, but that's again, I'm not on the inside, so I can't they know what they're doing. I think people buy tickets, they'll enjoy their shows. As far as others, wow, there's so many out there. Like and I don't want to leave anybody out. So if I leave anybody out, because you said top 5 here.
Yeah, well, is there any standout wrestlers in the area right now that you?
As far as stand-up, see, that's the thing. I feel like there's a lot of wrestlers kind of just working everywhere. One other promotion I did want to mention is Ryan Drew's Pro Wrestling Super Show, which runs a lot on the kind of the South Shore. That's kind of, I recently got a chance to finally go down, to go to the South Shore on a Friday. Most of those shows are Friday nights. Just traffic is not fun.
Yeah.
But I finally got to go to one month, maybe a couple months ago, and drawing great crowds. Just great show. Like, a lot of different stuff. So there's something for everybody, which I think that's a big formula that a lot of promotions forget about. There's Pat Dillon has UFO Wrestling. Great shows. I don't think he gets as much recognition as he should. Atlantic Pro Wrestling, that's another one. They've been tremendously successful.
And they come around New Hampshire quite a bit.
They have
too.
a lot in New Hampshire. They've been running in Mass for same building in Newbury for years now. And then there's a new one that's kind of started. They're only doing a few shows a year. I don't know if you heard about, called Rad Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, the throwback.
Very interesting because it's a lot of the Chaotic guys, but under different characters, kind of doing like 90s style gimmicks. So I haven't had a chance to see a show yet, but I've heard a lot of good about it. So I think that's somebody to watch for. And I think if they keep it like doing it only a few times a year, they'll continue to have success. There's NCW, which they have some regular shows down in Dedham, Dedham, Mass. There's a lot of different choices out there.
Nice. Now, over all the years that you've been watching wrestling in New England, Who have been the promoters that have just stood out to you?
Of course, the first one that always comes to mind is Tony Rumble, who he was kind of how I kind of got involved with independent wrestling when I had my cable access show. He always had kind of the shows with the, drew decent crowds. He was running, Revere football stadiums in the summertime. He was running, different buildings. He had TV, he had his cable access show, which eventually then he got on regular television. So definitely he's one. Obviously chaotic under, when Jamie Janikowski was the promoter, with Randy Miller, and then later years it was Jamie and a couple of his partners and Mark Boudreau, and then kind of on, now under Chase. So I think those are kind of memorable. It's probably something you'd like to forget that I could mention, but I think we won't go there.
I thought Jamie might have had to been one of the, and I know he had money, to my understanding.
So yeah, he had his company, that I think it was his parents' company originally. So he was using that. Yeah.
Because I mean, what Chaotic did, and I know he's given interviews, they really did have that connection with WWE, and that was something I think it's starting to come back, because obviously got Mike Hollow with WFA.
And that's where a lot of that connection came from, because Mike Hollow has a lot of contacts. Mike Hollow was actually on ring crew for WWE back in the day. So he I think, as far as trainers in the area, and again, no slight on any others, but I think Mike Hollow is probably the best out of anybody. So, if you can get up to the Elite Wrestling Academy, that's the school to go to.
Yeah, we always said, I told Mike when he was on the show, I said, we kind of call you the Bill Belichick of New England independent wrestling.
Like, I have never even trained under him, and I call him coach, because that's just what everybody calls him. And he's just the nicest guy. Like,
he really is.
A lot of knowledge, some people, that used to train under him, and now, kind of there seems to be some clash on it between him. I think they kind of just forget, that, he was trained. I mean, he has a very unique style. I think the one thing that's hard with him is, I think, when he used to train at Chaotic, is you'd start seeing the shows, and because he was training everybody, a lot of the matches kind of all looked the same, and I think that's where sometimes people feel like, but I think he has a lot of great advice. They're doing a lot of seminars and things.
But he even said himself, he's like, you can take what I have, that doesn't mean you can't go to this guy and take what they have. It's like anything, right? Like, the more knowledge you get, the more teachers you have, the better you're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think he's got a good philosophy.
Everybody should try all the, go to the different schools around, and you'll learn something different from everybody. You go, Bell Time Club, which is Bo Douglas. Ryan Drew has his school down in Fall River. Elite. I feel like everybody will teach you something different somewhere. Next Gen is up in Manchester. So there's just so many different choices.
Yeah, I think the real go-getters that really want to make it, they'll probably listen to everybody, is what I would think.
Absolutely.
What are some of the best crowds you've seen in independent wrestling?
Probably, in all honesty, and the guy doesn't really run shows anymore, but and maybe it was because he used a lot of ex-WWE talent, but Mike Sparta, when he ran what's called the World Wrestling Alliance, and now you have Big Time Wrestling, which is Steve Perkins. They kind of get really good. Went to a show a couple of years ago in Webster that had the Hardy Boys on it, and Bob Backlund, the Briscoe brothers, and I mean, the crowd was standing room only, probably 700-800 people. So that's probably some of the biggest crowds I've seen. But I've seen Chaotic, get pretty big, 400, 500, 600 for their buildings. They're packing them in to the point where sometimes they need to find bigger places.
Yeah. I mean, for me, some of the best I've seen, Cold Furies, those Limitless crowds, and I've only been to Limitless 3 times with the matches, and the crowd did not disappoint.
Nice. That's one place I have not yet got to see a show for, so just hard because they were so far up in the Maine.
You got to plan for it.
Yeah.
You got to, at one point, my buddy Jesse's, his sister Monique, a friend of mine too, we could go and crash at her place, so you wouldn't have to make the full drive. Me and Leo did the full drive, back and we were leaving Maine at 11:30 at night.
I used to do it. We used to go, up into Maine, when I used to, do the shows up there, and we'd go up, past Bangor sometimes, so it'd be 4 or 5 hour drive, and we'd come back the same night, which was, Maine's a big state for one thing. I never realized it till I started going up there doing wrestling shows. But yeah, and I'm at the point now, it's just harder for me to I used to not mind doing the 4-hour drive up, 4-hour drive back. Like, it didn't bother me, like getting home at 3 in the morning. Now I don't even want to do the 20-minute drive home from a
Yeah, yeah.
building, to be honest. Like,
I'm with you.
you know,
No, I get that. It's a haul. But it is. Randy Carver does a great job.
absolutely. And I will get up there at some point. It's just finding a opportunity.
Absolutely.
Time.
I want to do buy or sell real quick. I'm gonna give you a topic or something. You just tell me if you're buying or selling.
All right.
Major League Rugby.
Buy.
Yeah, I think it's gonna grow.
It seems to be growing. I mean, I've seen a lot of your posts about the Free Jacks and stuff, and it seems to be more popularity. So I definitely think it's something that will kind of grow over the next few years.
Well, I saw today CBS was talking about them going to the championship, but the Boston Globe has been covering it. So I'd like to see that in every city that has a team.
Absolutely.
New England Championship Wrestling in its heyday.
I would sell, and again, this is no offense to the promoter or whatever, but I felt like they had their really good moments, but they also had their really rough moments, and I feel like it was never like stable. So I feel like it wouldn't be something that in the end would have, knowing what I know now, then I might have been more apt to buy if I didn't know, kind of the outcome.
How long were they around?
They were around for a long time. I think he started in 99 or 2000, 2001, somewhere in then. And
Okay.
I think he ran, right up till probably probably just before the pandemic, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going when I first got into it. It was NECW and Chaotic.
Yeah, and NECW had he had his, he spun it off into the women's promotion.
Yeah. I just remember both companies when Slade and Sherman were in their height of their popularity. I would go and I'd want to see them.
Nice. That's kind of when I was in my not going to shows for a while.
Yeah.
I think that was in that 2014 to 2019.
Yeah.
Because I kind of started going back to shows in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, there was. I mean, we would love to have Mark Sherman on this show, but we talked about with Leo on. It's he's giving non-answers to so many people that I just
Yeah, I don't think he wants to do it, to be honest. That's from what I've heard.
and that's totally cool, But the Ring and All Other Sports, with Leo Connors.
I would buy it. There's, I think Leo underestimates how important his show is to New England wrestling and how much respect he has. Everybody knows him. Everybody praises the show because he always, puts everybody over. It's funny because he had Ryan Drew on once, and it always makes me laugh when I see the clip because Ryan's like, Leo, you love everybody. You say everybody's good. He's like, you walk in the convenience store, the guy says a wrestling fan. You're like, you want to be a guest on my show? Come on, we'll do it on a Wednesday if you want. And I always laugh at that because that's, the kind of guy Leo is, though. He doesn't want anybody upset. He's going to, have everybody on. He really puts over New England wrestling as a whole. Been very successful. So, yeah, absolutely would buy.
Absolutely. And false finishes in 2023.
It depends. So you're asking would I buy or sell them?
Well, they are overdone, I feel.
They are definitely overdone, but that's kind of always been the case, I feel like. I mean, you go back to Jim Crockett Promotions in the 80s, that was Dusty Rhodes' thing all the time. He probably killed a lot of wrestling towns because of it, because, he would make it look like the title switched. People would go home thinking it, and then on TV the next week they'd announce in that town only, oh yeah, that, it was disqualification and the title didn't change hands,
Yeah.
I think if done right, I would buy, but overdone, yeah, I would probably sell them.
I think I know where you're going with this one. CM Punk.
I would sell. I'm not sold on him. I didn't, when he did the whole pipe bomb thing in WF, everybody thought he was big. I was in the kind of minority. He grew on me a little bit, but I still didn't think he was that. I just don't think he ever got over to that point. Even in AEW, I feel like when he first came back, it was huge. And then after a few weeks, it just kind of I feel like the importance went away.
For me, when he's on television, I want to watch. When he's there were times where, honestly, I'd record AEW, fast forward the CM Punk part, and then not watch the rest of the show.
Fair enough.
But that is, I think a lot of people, I love talking. That's one of my favorite parts of wrestling, and I think that is one thing that he's a master of. I'm also not one of those people that needs a 5-star classic match all the time.
No, I'm not looking for that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's why I don't like him. I think it's more just I don't see there's that much popularity or
Do you think it was unfair for him to think that he was ever on the same level as John Cena?
I don't think he was. I think, no offense to him, but I feel like John Cena just was at that level like John Cena did a lot more than he ever did. I mean, I think in his mind he might have been, but I just don't think it ever was. I think he was more popular with the internet fans, but not the general
The
wrestling audience.
mainstream type
Yeah.
Chaotic Wrestling.
I definitely buy them. I mean, again, I've talked about it. They've just always been successful.
Yeah, no, I haven't been to a Chaotic show in a long time, but I haven't been to a lot of wrestling, and I've even said to Mike Hall, like, I want to get to a WFA show, and it's always like I always have to be somewhere when they're running, so it's been tough. Last one I just want to ask, because we were both at a show there for NXT. Are you buying or selling the Saugus Arena?
Oh, I would definitely buy it. I feel like that's a very underutilized building. I don't know if it's, they weren't always owned by the college, and I feel like since the college kind of bought them, it's kind of underused. Like they could have so many more events there. Not just wrestling. Concerts. Just so much. One thing is, for me, I'm kind of a little biased because I also love the Lowell Auditorium. I know it's much smaller.
I do love it too.
But it's just a great facility for, that's where I saw my first WWF TV tapings was in the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. So for me, it's just kind of, if wrestling was coming to town, I would rather them be at the auditorium than the Saugus Arena. But the Saugus Arena definitely, I feel like, just very underutilized.
You get in and you get out.
Place,
That's what I love about it.
I feel like a lot of people don't, I don't know if it's, there's just so many other places around the area that's why they don't go there. I don't know, or if it's just the building isn't trying to book more.
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly, but I did like going there for NXT because, like I said, if I can get to my car and I can get in traffic and just go, I'm a happy camper.
Well, there you go. There's your Threads by Instagram post.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted to get that in there.
Yeah.
I don't know why we need another social media platform.
Oh,
at
my
this
brother
point.
mentioned this. I'll have to look up what it is.
So it's basically Facebook/Instagram's version of Twitter.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are jumping on it because Twitter has made so many changes lately.
Yeah, I've never been a big Twitter guy, but I got to check that out. But
Absolutely.
Dave, I really appreciate
having me. It's good to be here.
It's always good to see you. Everybody out there, have a great week. Keep your heads up. Go Free Jacks. Let's take this home. We want the Shield. Let's go. We'll see you next week. Let Freedom ring.